It has now officially been 6 months since the release of Assassin's Creed Mirage, believe it or not, half a year already, and the game had a pretty chaotic build-up and launch. There were lots of opinions and different feelings coming from all sorts of different sources, which is why I felt it was important to check back on the game now that we've had plenty of time to fully digest it and look at it from a more objective point of view, one that isn't clouded by hype or skepticism. This is not meant to be a review of Mirage by any means. If you want to see that, I made a nearly 2-hour-long video going into almost every little thing about the game, but this is more meant to be a check-in with Mirage, and maybe help some people decide whether or not they want to give it a go now that it's been 6 months and the hype has died down. Because I think regardless, hype and recency bias can absolutely affect people's opinion of a new game, so the benefit of waiting for the hype to die down allows us to see the game through a more clear, objective lens. First things first though, I want to talk about Mirage's reception, because it was very peculiar to say the least. I feel like in the mainstream, the reception was pretty mixed. A lot of the big review sites and channels out there were quite indifferent about this game, and I think to the more average casual player, Mirage really didn't do anything too special for them. But meanwhile, I felt the reception within the Assassin's Creed community itself was a lot more positive than in the mainstream. Of course, if you've watched me, you know I loved the game, I went very in depth on why I do, and the general feeling I got from the rest of the community and my subscribers was also quite positive. I think we're all in agreement that this isn't a perfect game by any means, but for a lot of us, it scratched an itch the series hasn't been able to scratch in at least 9, possibly 10 years. I know for myself personally, it was probably the most I had enjoyed an AC game since Unity. I do love Origins as well, but I felt Mirage was more the kind of Assassin's Creed game I enjoy. But yeah, I feel the reception was for the most part positive. I know some people may have been disappointed by it or dismissed it as another uninventive Ubisoft game, but I think for the core audience Ubisoft Bordeaux intended this game for, we liked it, or at least most of us. Obviously, it's not the type of game everyone will love, and that's okay. And the game has only improved in the 6 months since its release. I think Ubisoft Bordeaux really has their finger on the pulse of the community when it comes to a lot of the updates they added in post-launch, because they fulfilled nearly every big request the community had. Like for example, I remember not too long after Mirage came out, I made a video talking about the game's biggest issue, which to me at the time was the lack of replay value. Well, since then, we've got a new game plus and even a permadeath mode called the Full Synchronization Challenge that has improved the replay value of the game exponentially. I of course even did an entire playthrough on permadeath and it was a lot of fun. Aside from maybe replayable contracts and missions, they've done pretty much all they can to increase the game's replay value, especially when you consider there likely won't ever be a DLC expansion. Obviously that's something they said before the launch of the game, but there was a part of me that was hoping that would change if the game sold well enough, which it presumably did a lot better than Ubisoft even expected, yet it still doesn't seem like we'll be getting DLC, which is a bummer, but hey, at least we did get New Game Plus and permadeath, so there is actually a reason to replay the game multiple times. And then obviously another great example of Bordeaux listening to the community were the changes they made to ejects in Parkour. Jinto Haku made an eject mod not too long after Mirage came out that allowed you to gain height on back and side ejects, making them a lot more viable within the game's parkour system. It was such an improvement, I made a video specifically talking about that mod and hoping Ubisoft Bordeaux would actually implement these changes to ejects into an official update. And I said that thinking there was a slight chance they might, but not really expecting it, because it's rare to see Ubisoft studios implement community feedback like that, especially from a mod, and not only did Bordeaux do that, they improved it and implemented it into the New Game Plus update in December, which was a pretty quick turnaround as well. At this point, I had already shared my faith in Ubisoft Bordeaux as a studio. I had really liked how they interacted with the community and implemented feedback prior to the game's launch, but this is what really made me be like, okay, yeah, I really like this team, they need to be way more involved in this series going forward. Then they of course added a lot more outfits to the game, many of which as rewards for completing permadeath or New Game Plus, and they look fantastic. They added a full transmog system for every outfit in the game, so you can have whatever costume and dye you want with it not affecting your perks. Just some really nice quality of life improvements, and like I said, the game has only gotten better in these 6 months. So even with no DLC, I'm still very pleased with Mirage's post-launch. Now of course, like I said, this game isn't perfect, and some of its flaws have become more clear now that I've really had a lot of time to process and think about the game, and I really think Mirage's biggest flaw, that I've talked about quite a bit at length already, is the cutscene presentation. And really, this isn't an issue specific to Mirage right now, it's been an issue since Odyssey, but Mirage is where it became more abundantly clear. It's not something that ruins the game for me by any means, but it is a very noticeable downgrade from a lot of the previous games that when you think about it, really shouldn't be a problem for a smaller game that's around the same length as those older AC titles that have much better cutscenes. I made a whole video about this already, so I won't get too into it again, but I think if Bordeaux were to ever make another AC game, which I really hope they get the opportunity to do, I'd say cutscene presentation absolutely needs to be a focus for improvement. Whether it's better animation or just utilizing motion capture for all the main story cutscenes, that's undoubtedly an area that needs to improve. Because I enjoyed Mirage's story, I think Basim is one of the best AC characters of the recent games without a doubt, and if it just had the presentation to match that, I think the story would have only been significantly better. So if there's any major flaw I have with Mirage that I could point to, it would be cutscenes. However, the game's biggest strengths are what made it such an enjoyable experience for me, and one of the major ones is of course Baghdad itself. Great setting, great world design, gorgeous visuals and lighting, it's immersive, it's packed with NPCs, it has really good parkour pathing, it's not too big and empty, it's not too small and restrictive, it's pretty much everything you would want from an Assassin's Creed open world. So much of Assassin's Creed's identity is tied in with the setting and history of its world, and when that is as rich and well crafted as Baghdad, you have an excellent foundation for an AC game. I said it when the game came out, and I'm sticking to it, it's still one of my favorite open worlds of the entire series. And obviously, the other big strength is stealth. Mirage is a game that understands stealth and what makes it fun. That shows through the little details like allowing for frontal assassinations even after you've been spotted, being able to assassinate enemies in a smoke bomb regardless if you've been detected, being able to aim your tools from hiding places without exiting cover, the sheer variety of the tools and the modifications, the creativity and versatility Assassin's Focus allows for. Even something as simple as the roll mechanic feels really good. Mirage's stealth is just fun, and seeing as stealth is the most important thing to me in an AC game, it's no wonder why I had so much fun with this game. The creativity and amount of things you can do within the stealth that the developers probably didn't even fully intend creates a much more in-depth and satisfying experience. I mean, if you want to just see some of the best possibilities you can get within Mirage's stealth system, I recommend you check out my video showcasing some of the clips my viewers sent me. These are the kinds of results you get when the game gives you all these tools to go wild with. The parkour still may not be the ideal version of what a lot of people in the community may want, but I still find it to be a lot of fun and a big improvement. Obviously, I already discussed the eject update and how well Baghdad is designed for parkour, but there is a pace and fluidity to Mirage's parkour that, while it may not be as mechanically in-depth as those older titles, is still very satisfying. But really the biggest thing Mirage did for me as a whole was reignite the assassin fantasy. For a lot of us, that's what drew us to this series in the first place. The idea of playing as this trained killer with a hood and a hidden blade as you stalk the rooftops, assassinate targets, and vanish into the shadows, all while serving a brotherhood that works in the dark to serve the light. There was always something so cool and fulfilling about being an assassin in these games, and while maybe Mirage doesn't recapture that lightning in a bottle that started with the original game fully, it sure brought me the closest to that feeling out of any AC game in almost 10 years. And that's a combination of everything: the world, the stealth, the parkour, even something as simple as customization, the story, Basim as a character. Basim has become one of my favorite protagonists of the series, and playing as him, I finally felt like I was playing as a character who embodied what an assassin is in this series again. I really hope this isn't the last we see of him, but with how non-committal Ubisoft is to a lot of these characters nowadays, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But all this to say, 6 months removed from the release of AC Mirage, it's a game I still love. Some of its flaws have perhaps become more clear as time has passed, but I still stand by how I felt 6 months ago. This was just a really fun experience for me, and even after the hype, it's a game I still return to and want to talk about often, which should say a lot. I'm still hoping for some kind of sequel or spiritual successor in some way, but it'll probably be a while if that does happen, as we now train our focus onto Codename Red, but I'll be sure to keep an intrigued eye on what Ubisoft Bordeaux remains up to, because they really deserve another chance to develop a game that builds on Mirage, in my opinion. But that's me. How has your opinion of Mirage changed in the 6 months after its release, now that you've had time to properly digest it without all the outside noise and hype? Or, if perhaps you were someone who was waiting to play the game, do you think now is the right time for you to finally give it a shot? As always, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and considered subscribing to the channel if you're new. A special thank you to my members, and other than that, thanks for watching everybody. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.